What gives you heart trouble, my friends? What gives you heart trouble? In other words, what really disturbs your inner peace? You know, if each of us told the rest of us one thing that troubled us, I think we would all be amazed at how many things have the power to trouble us, to disturb us. You know, so many things in life seem to have the power to take our inner peace away. Money problems, relationship problems, personal weaknesses, attractions, addictions to drugs or alcohol, or even the negative parts of the internet. These are just but a few of the many, many things that break our fragile hearts. And when Jesus told us in the gospel today to not let our hearts be troubled, perhaps he was saying something about a relentless anxiety that some people experience. You know, there's a great deal of difference between a constant state of anxiety and the occasional time when we feel anxious about something. When something suddenly frightening or disturbing bursts into our lives, I think most of us react in the very same way. Who wouldn't be anxious if they found themselves involved in a serious accident? Or if someone close to them suddenly took ill or died? But if our hearts are normally peaceful and trusting, then we eventually return to that way of living. With time and with prayer, we're able to move through the crisis. Now, we may still have feelings that are sometimes difficult to deal with, such as loneliness or grief, but we manage to regain the inner peace that we once had. On the other hand, the anxious person always seems to find something to feel worried about, whether that something is important or not. You know, if we place too much importance on what is not important, then we're never going to have a proper balance in our hearts. And what Jesus wants for us is to give our entire lives over to him. I'm not sure if many of us really succeed in doing that. You know, we seem to be okay for a while, strongly trusting in Jesus. But then we often drift away from that trust in Jesus. We often end up misplacing our trust, giving it to things or giving it to other people, when we should be giving it all to Jesus. You know, my friends, I'm not saying that we shouldn't trust other people. Of course we should. Our lives often depend on our trusting one another. But we cannot give our whole lives over to another person, no matter how much we might love them. Because if we did, then we would be making that person into God. Our lives are in God's hands alone. And of course, it almost goes without saying that when we place too much trust in things, then we're heading towards a rocky crash. If the status of your heart depends on your bank account or the size of your house, well, then get ready to live a very unsettled, anxious, worrisome life. When it comes to money and material things, my friends, we can always find something to worry about, no matter how much we may have. So how do we really give our entire life over to Jesus? How do we do that? Well, we work on building our trust in him by constantly letting him into our hearts, into the deepest places of our hearts, places that perhaps we've never let anyone else get into. And it's here that prayer is so important. As we place ourselves more and more into the presence of Jesus, we'll find ourselves sharing his sacred heart. You know, many of us have experienced that when we're really close to another person, we take on some of that person's way of thinking and feeling. If you spend years deeply sharing your life with another person, you discover you may have some ways that you become just like that other person. As we come to know Jesus more and more in prayer, that we'll find that in our daily lives, in our thinking and in our feeling, we'll become deeply affected by that relationship. Our decisions will no longer be made just according to human ways of looking at things, but will be more in keeping with the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And we'll begin to see ourselves in a new way. You know, the more confidence, the more trust we have in Jesus, then the more we can face the truth about ourselves. We can only face up to who we really are in the presence of someone whom we trust and trust totally. So if we trust Jesus, then no matter what we have done or not done, we trust that Jesus is going to go on loving us through it all. In fact, Jesus has always known the dark side of our character. And perhaps as we draw closer to him, he's going to let us in on the secret, letting us know that he knows all of who we are. And instead of upsetting us, those insights of self-awareness should bring us a sense of freedom. And so, my friends, I pray that we might all learn to trust Jesus, not some of the time, but all the time. There is room in his Sacred Heart for each and every one of us. May we find ourselves at home with one another in that most sacred of places.